Catherine's going to kick us off today. Go ahead.
Welcome to the well. Get filled up. The source of something greater.
This is Drew. And I don't think we're going to let Kat introduce the show anymore.
Oh, you will, because it's awesome.
Right. You're right. And
I don't like to be conventional. That's people know me. They know how I am. And if you don't know me, you should get to know me. Now you know.
Wow. Okay. Episode 17 of The Well. Welcome in.
You sure it's 17?
It is 17. I double checked. I fact checked. I can't believe we're on our 17th episode. Happy 17th anniversary.
Didn't realize that was an anniversary.
I just, hey, it's a new episode, a new day.
Sure. I like it. Positive energy. Let's go.
So speaking of positive energy, that'll be the topic, sort of the topic for today. So in current times, Kat and I are going through some shit. Right? World's been a little hard place to live. Stuff. Yes. Yeah, this ain't PG all the time. You feel me, doggy? Like, for real, I'm from the East. We have a certain vernacular we like to use, and Catherine doesn't like my East Coast flair. But that's
Sometimes
not what we're here to talk about. We needed some things to feel good about. So, nostalgia. Nostalgia can make you feel pretty good. And this impending, snowstorm that was going to shut the entire country down. It's nice to know that some things are consistent. We overcommit and underdeliver, right? So as far as the weather.
So true.
As the, supermarket shelves were an indicator. But in any case, out here in Texas, we did get a couple inches of snow and ice. So
yeah, looking out the window now.
Talk about some of the best memories as a kid when it came to snow days. Like, snow days were magical days for me. Were they magical for you?
They were.
So let's talk about a school day snow day. So we were talking about this the other day. We were in the kitchen making fat kid food. Catherine decided to pull out the bread maker. And that's never a good indication, because you're like, all right, I'm really trying to not eat a ton of carbs. And Catherine pulls out the bread maker, and it's like carb load day is
but it's
every
good
hour.
Carbs. It's like bread that doesn't have lots of stuff in it. That's bad.
It was tasty. It was tasty.
It was good.
But
especially that.
And we got to
loaf.
talking. Yeah, that was good stuff. Lemon loaf. So we got to talking, and I was thinking back. I was like, do you remember you'd hear the weather, right? And back in the day, we had to wait for the news, or we had to tune in to AM radio, right? Traffic on the twos, and then weather. No. Okay. No.
Hey, some people might remember that.
Yeah, I'm from the Stone Age, so I remember it. Pepperidge Farm remembers.
Get to the point, boy.
I was like, do you remember how we used to find out if school was closed?
We were watching TV, and this triggered your memory. You were like, oh.
Yeah, because I was like, I remember waking up at the butt crack of dawn, which never happens on a regular school day.
No.
And turning on the news and looking at the little ticker tape at the bottom to see if I saw my school number.
Yeah.
Which I don't remember. But the code, right? Like, you're anticipating the code to know if school's closed. Mm-hmm. And if it wasn't closed, you were at least hopeful for like a 2-hour delay.
Right. Yeah.
And here, I have to say, like, back in Pennsylvania, back in Philly, it took a lot to close a school. Here in Texas, oh my gosh, like, school's already closed at the threat of snow. So
that is true.
But the other thing I was thinking about was, you used to also be able to call a number to your school and find out, and it was always busy. Everyone was trying to call, and it was just like, you kept dialing. It was almost like trying to get through to a radio show contest, right? Like, you'd be busy, you'd hit redial. So do you remember? I think you do. I mean, you kind of alluded to it, that kind of moment of seeing the number pop up on the screen.
Oh, yeah. And be like, yes. Yeah.
And why were you so excited if school was closed?
So I'm from Memphis, Tennessee, and we get every season, the change of seasons, which is great. But it was rare that we would have a lot of snow. And when we did have snow, the night before a school day, you'd be like, I wonder if we're going to have school. So the school I went to, we had a secretary, and she would always record the weather message on the automated phone number, and on the voicemail. So when people would call, so sometimes she wouldn't get to it that night, you would have to wait and see. And it'd be like, I think our school started at like 8 a.m. or something like that. And so.
Damn, you started late.
We did. Yeah. That was when you went to school, like, well, for us, it was 8 to 3:30 or 3:15 on Wednesdays. We get out early. And I know a lot of the girls I went to school with would remember that. But yeah, so anyway, I'd be like, oh. And then you start thinking about what you're going to do on the snow day. So I lived in a cove, a cul-de-sac when I was a little kid, and I had mostly boys in my neighborhood. I loved going outside to play. So we were always inventing ways to like sled on the snow or the ice. Then there was always barely just enough, kind of like in Texas, where you could do something. So I was always stealing we never had sleds. You didn't need it. And actually, in Texas, I bought a little red sled, like a little plastic one, and I had it for 2 years, the past 2 years, and I was like, I'll just sell it. I'm never going to use it. And I got all discouraged. I sold it like 2 weeks ago. And now I'm like, I turned to you, what was it, yesterday or the day before? And I was like, dang it, I knew I shouldn't have sold that sled. But anyway, I would use the laundry basket. We had two different things. It was either a plastic bin or a laundry basket if you didn't have, because plastic bins were kind of expensive. So if you didn't have a plastic bin, you were using the laundry basket. And it wasn't that sturdy to hold a child's body in. So it never worked right. But you know what? It worked and you had fun. And, you ran outside and you made snowballs and snowball fight. It's just one of those things, I think, that you don't ever outgrow. It's a memory that comforts you.
I will say the memory for me started with my mom, who loved the snow for whatever reason. And anytime there was a chance of snow, she would do her snow dance, she would call it. She would do this little dance, and then it would always snow afterwards. So we grew up in that, kind of excitement. I know, right? Shout out to my mom. Her birthday was on the 20th. So happy heavenly birthday, Mom. So it was always it started magical when we were little. And my friends and I were thick as thieves, right? We'd go prospecting for places to sled. And it was always somewhere where you weren't allowed to sled, right?
Of
like
course.
It was forbidden.
The best.
And of course, the big targets by us were golf courses because they were wide open. Yeah. They had hills. Yeah. And of course, that was a big no-no, but we did it anyway.
Of course.
And I'll never forget making my own, you brought it up. Everything, you're so creative as a kid. Anything is a sled. It could become a sled.
A cardboard box. I use that a lot.
And it worked. It actually worked. It depended on the snow. But at one point, we had blade sleds, like what were they called? Not red flyers, not radio flyers.
Oh,
anyway,
I don't know what this is.
They were the blade sleds with the wooden handle and you could turn it. And we used to drag, get someone on a bike or a car. And we
y'all were fancy.
Yeah, we were crazy.
Oh my gosh.
So, and then we started thinking, and this was before snowboards kind of were around.
Yeah.
My one friend made a snowboard out of wood, and then I used to take the trucks and wheels off my skateboard and put strings on it to keep my boots in there, and used to use those as a snowboard. It never worked well. It was always,
It's funny, though, that you thought of that, even as a kid, as kind of this is the technique that you use on snow. It's funny what we think of.
Yeah, and everything was fair game.
Yeah.
Anything that you could put your butt on or feet on was fair game. So literally it was, and I remember also when the saucer sled came out, that was a big deal.
Yeah.
The big metal, and I'm not talking, it's similar to
the
Christmas Vacation, but
Chevy
when that
Chase.
saucer sled came out, that changed the game. You used to spin around, it was like, that was the shit.
Yeah.
That was the shit. The saucer sled was the best.
Every time I see, as a kid, when I watched the Christmas Vacation, I was always like, I want one of those. Yeah, it is pretty cool what you do as a kid, playing outside. And then for me, I'd always think a year ahead. Imagine that. I'd be like, okay.
Did you make a list?
No, I was like, well, in my mind, I did. I was like, okay, scoping out places for next year if this happens again. And you would always think, yeah, we could go over here by this lake or, by whatever. One year I lived in apartments and there were a bunch of hills. And that was probably one of the most fun places that I sledded. But yeah, great memories.
But let's talk about some of the funny memories when it came to, I'm talking when we're little kids, right? And snow is amazing when you're super little, but I'm really going to age myself, which my birthday is coming up in a few days.
It is.
I remember the boots being just torture devices. So like when you first started, your parents first started letting you go out in the snow, I'll never forget my mom putting plastic bags over my socks, right? And then slipping into these like rubber vinyl boots that were completely open at the top, and they just had this little rubber clasp, like it was like a rubber band, and it would go around the button, and it didn't hold anything out, right? So you had these bags on your feet, and then you got snow in there, but yet you never kind of complained about the cold because you didn't want to go inside.
Yeah, no,
So
definitely
here
not.
you are with wet, sloppy feet. And as Catherine will attest to, one of my biggest pet peeves is wet feet. I hate when my feet get wet. It's a weird thing, I know. But it would always drive me nuts. But I never wanted to come inside because I didn't want to stop. I didn't want to stop being out in the amazing snow. So did you have those boots, or was it just my generation that had
No,
those
unfortunately,
torture devices?
I didn't have snow boots. I don't know why. I think because we didn't want to buy them, or my mom didn't ever buy them, or we didn't know where to buy them. I have no idea. All I know is that I always wore like it was just like regular tennis shoes. And we used to call them tennis shoes back then. And I would have like a sweatpants suit on as like a 5-year-old. It'd be like the cotton sweatpants. I mean, what you see now, with the sweatshirt. And then my mom would layer me to death. She would put like a wool sweater on me. And then she would put like another set of pants on me. And then she'd put this this used to be a big thing, and long puffer jackets are now again but I did not I remember exactly what color it was. And I think a lot of other people had the same coat. And if you remember, post it in the comments. It was this long, light gray, kind of like silver outer puffer jacket. Like the color was silver. And then on the inside, it was like this light mauve purple. And it had a hood. And my mom would put me in that thing, and I literally could not move. I was so stuffed in. But I'd waddle outside, and my sister was 8 years older than me, or is 8 years older than me. So we had a good time. We definitely did.
That's awesome. Yeah,
but I didn't have traditional snow gear like you.
I don't know if I would say.
East.
I mean, I wouldn't say we had traditional snow gear. I remember the jackets being like super stiff, so your arms were you could barely put your arms down, and then you had the hood that was you could barely move your neck, so you were
earmuffs.
Yeah, well, no,
I totally wore
hats.
earmuffs. Really?
We wore hats. And do you remember the clips for your mittens? It would clip on to the little metal clip that would clip onto that would never work. You would always lose it anyway. So, but I remember the first time, I have a recollection of the first time I wore like real snow boots, the moon boots from the 80s. I don't know if anybody remembers those, but those were all the rage. And snow, when you put those moon boots on, you were like, you could plow through anything. Those were revolutionary in snow wear. So quite a difference from putting your foot in a bag into a rubber boot that didn't do anything.
Yeah.
So that was always, and there wasn't a lot, like you always were wet, right? There wasn't snow pants. You didn't have like all this stuff to repel
but you were
water.
Okay. You were okay with it.
And
because it was fun.
Well, you just didn't want to. You didn't want to be inside.
No,
you couldn't keep me inside on a snow day. Even now, even today, as I'm looking outside, I want to be outside. Like I want to go play in the snow. I want to go sledding.
You have gone outside multiple times, actually.
I know. It's for whatever reason, the snow just gives me just good feelings for whatever. And this is kind of weird. I used to love taking my car out in the snow and just driving around, teaching myself how to drive in inclement weather, which has benefited us.
True.
Since we have driven down the mountain in some of the most treacherous conditions ever at like 4 a.m. with no visibility. So there's just tons of dumb shit I did in the snow. I mean, we used to pull each other behind a car. Like we were
definitely done
almost
that.
like water skiing on the snow. Like, what a dumb idea. That was always fun.
But it looked great.
Yeah, those are the times I wish we had cell phones. Because, like, literally recording some of that stuff would have been awesome.
I know. That is kind of sad we didn't. So what did you eat? Always chicken noodle soup for me when I come inside.
Yeah, I think that's when you first really acquired the Campbell soup, chicken noodle soup taste. It's so distinct that, and you had sometimes if my mom was feeling up to it, the thermos, right? The plastic thermos would come out with the top would be the bowl.
Yeah.
So
hot chocolate too.
And you always wanted to eat out of a thermos. I don't know why. It was just super cool to eat out of a thermos.
So true. It was more fun. Especially if you could twist off the top and it turns into a little cup,
Yeah, I mean that was cool, but didn't make it taste any better. But
I'll never forget. I had a Crayola crayon as a.
Oh, I remember that.
Do you? As
I
the
do.
Thermos with the little. The top was the top of the crayon was the cup. Oh my gosh, I loved it so much. Then I had a Rainbow Bright one when I was really little, and I would take it to lunch. I love that thing. And I love the smell of the plastic.
See, I had metal lunch boxes, so we didn't have plastic yet. Growing up, I had to start it off with the metal, and I had some cool metal ones.
Did you?
I think I had a Star Wars one. I had a Rockford Files one. I don't know if you probably don't remember that. No. The Jim Rockford, where he would drive backwards and then do a 180. Anyway, I was always fascinated by the Jim Rockford, but
that's why you drive the way you do.
Yeah, right. I wish I could do a Jim Rockford. Can't quite do that anymore. They don't put parking brakes in cars anymore, so it's really hard to do that stuff. But I just think I actually don't think it has to do with anything like that, but who knows?
It's all about money.
I don't know if it's about money. I just don't know if we needed to upgrade the way we use a parking brake. So, and people like you never use the parking brake.
No, definitely not.
So you never drove, like clearly you haven't owned a stick shift.
No, but my dad was real big into pulling the brake up. He was always afraid the car would roll back out of the driveway, even though our driveway was flat.
Hey, you never know. Can't be too safe.
He's always prepared.
Can't be too safe.
Yeah. But
what other fun lunch things do we have? Think back, like
always the trays that like you remember those. Maybe y'all didn't have those. We talked about this. The plastic, those thick plastic trays for lunchroom. It was either brown or
like prison.
And it had a texture to it. It was there on top. Do you remember that? Where you could rub your fingers across it and it had like this pattern on it. It's crazy that I still remember that.
From sticking, from sliding around, they put texture on it. So, yes, I'll never, or the trays that had, these are real prison trays that had the cutouts, right? It was like molded and you had like sections.
I didn't have those. But my mom didn't pay for, or my parents didn't pay for the school lunch. I often brought it, but I tell you what, I would scrounge up. They let me pay cash. I would scrounge up like change from the sofa because I love that rectangle piece of pizza, which you and I have talked about. And what was the name of that?
Ilio's. It's Ilio's Pizza.
Yeah, and it came in this white styrofoam little plate, the rectangular platter, and then it had the saran wrap over it. And I always got the sausage one, and then I would get a chocolate milk, and I would always get some kind of chocolate treat for dessert. And I would literally, I would have my lunch. My mom would pack my lunch, but I was like, I do not want this. It would always be like bologna or she would pack me stuff Nature's Valley granola bar, and as a kid, those things were so freaking dry.
They still are.
I mean, now they are, but now I kind of like them. It's weird, but yeah, I didn't like them. You like granola as an elderly person?
No,
is that
those
the sign?
But
no.
The kids typically. Did your kids grow up eating granola?
No, because I didn't want them to eat anything I didn't like. I offered, but most of the time I let them eat what they want.
Yeah, I didn't. I'm trying to think. My mom packed lunch, but then didn't. But I didn't like lunchroom food because I was such a picky eater. So I don't think I ate much lunch, but I literally was so emaciated as a child just because I never ate.
You were a very thin kid. and young adult. Do you
That's 'cause
remember
I
the heat
didn't like
lamps?
eating. Oh, yeah. They still have those.
Yeah, I know,
They
but
still have those.
I remember the red glow of the heat lamp and the crinkle fries. Everybody always got, like, all my friends always wanted the crinkle fries.
I didn't like
And
crinkle fries.
I didn't like them either for some reason, but everybody was always like, "What's the food for today? What's the food for today?" And people would come out, and eat. Did you ever have people to sit with at lunch when you were a little kid?
Oh, that's tough. Little, yes. Like middle school, it got a little dicey.
Yeah. I can't remember, actually. I think I didn't have a lot of people that I sat with, but
wait, I want to go back to the crinkle cut fries.
Oh,
Do you
okay.
remember the brand? Do you know why I never liked crinkle
No,
cut?
I don't know.
Yeah.
Was it really?
Good job.
Oh, okay.
Wow, you pulled that one out quick. Pause.
I did.
But yes, and they always tasted freezer burn, right? You would bite into it.
Yes,
You'd always know it was a frozen French fry, unless you were tossing it in the fryer, which typically people, I don't know, I shouldn't say typically. We never did in our house.
No, we didn't have a fryer, but I didn't like them because they were always limp, like soggy. They may have come out crispy, but over time under the heat lamp, I feel like they always melted. So they never look good. And I don't like soft fries. They have to be crispy.
Pause.
But
yes.
Anyway.
Yes, I agree. And then they would be sitting under that heat lamp for an eternity.
Yes,
just sweating and getting nasty. Yeah. So
did you have lunchroom duty?
Food?
Did you ever have to? Really? We had lunchroom duty.
No, I don't remember anyone having lunchroom duty. I mean, public school, I'm trying to think what that would even entail. But I do remember the tables would fold out of the wall. So literally they would fold out of the wall because it was like a multi-purpose room. So it was the lunchroom and then it could be turned into.
Right.
So they would fold down. Same with the bleachers in the gymnasium. They would retract back. I don't know if you remember that. Like they would fold out and then retract back. So, and assembly day was like a big deal because you were getting out of class, right? Like assembly day. Oh my goodness. Forget about it. So
true.
Trying to think what other fun, this episode had a lot more ideas in my head when coming to snow. And I'm like, what other nostalgic things can we refer to? I've been seeing all over my Facebook feed, I guess because I watch a lot of nostalgia stuff. I'm at that age where I'm feeling nostalgic and I get a lot of interesting stuff. So TV, right? Let's say you were homesick. And we were talking about this the other day because we have 5,000 channels of TV and can never find it. Can never find anything. And every freaking streaming service, blah, blah, blah. So the other day, there's the Price is Right channel, the Bob Barker years. So
which is
literally,
funny. It's a whole channel dedicated to
24/7 of Bob Barker's Price is Right. And we're sitting there watching it. And I was like, gosh, this was one of my favorite shows to watch when I was home from school. I don't know why. I have no clue what the draw was, but I loved that show and all the games. And they gave away, I was like, man, I want to be on the Price is Right. That was like a dream for a while. I want to be on the Price is Right. But that show couldn't get away with what it got away with then today, like the kissing and reaching in my pocket for the $100, right? Only women got to reach in the pocket, Bob, you dirty dog. So literally Bob Barker sexually harassing everybody on stage.
I told you what he looked like. He looked like a cross between Mr. Rogers and who did I say? Ed McMahon. I was like, he's suave, but yet not at the same time.
Hey, make sure you get your pet spayed and neutered. My guy controlling the pet population. So, and then you had the Barker's Beauties too. I mean, you can't forget the Barker's Beauties.
When I was home from school, whether it was weather or sick, all I remember, it was always hard to find stuff to watch. I mean, it wasn't like you could just pop it. I mean, you had a VCR if you had one, but it wasn't like on demand or you could cast or stream your favorite show. So it would be soap operas all day. And I remember as a kid watching it and being so bored with it.
I couldn't get into them either.
Yeah. But I will tell you that another thing I love to do, and one of the things that will appear, because I still want to create this will appear in one of my art shows at some point as an installation piece. But one of my favorite things to do was create a fort, whether it was like a rainy day or a snow day. And my mom would always let me use the dining chairs because they were like these old ladder back chairs with the rush seats. And you would drape the blankets over it, and then you would put them up against the couch. So those were the walls, and then you would use the couch and build up the cushions to make the other part of the fort. And I remember we had this tiny little TV, and my mom would actually take me, or she would let me use the TV in the fort. And it was awesome. So I would watch cartoons like early in the morning, and I put like a blanket in there, and I'd get my books. And I mean, I would spend a lot of time taking all this stuff into the fort, and I loved it. I mean, it was such a cool space. You had to have the snacks, you had to have the TV for cartoons, and then you'd have like, I loved books too as a kid. Books were a huge thing for me. So I'd always take books in there. And I remember my dad would get in the fort with me a lot. So my dad was very much, he really enjoyed doing fun things like that. So I've posted this on my Instagram before about my dad and I always making paper airplanes, and he was always doing the fort with me. He would read me stories and use different voices, especially with Goldilocks and the Three Bears. So he had a lot of imagination, which was cool.
So did you have a lineup of shows that you would watch if you were home from school, let's just say? Do you remember the lineup of shows? Like, would you like to share that lineup?
Excuse me. Yes, I would. I used to love DuckTales. After school, it would be DuckTales. And then there would be, gosh, what is the name of that show? I did it was either Saturday morning or after school, and I can't remember which shows were on when, but Tailspin was another one. I don't know if people remember that. Mighty Mouse, definitely watched that one. Rainbow Bright, The Smurfs, those were definitely the top ones. And I loved Charlie Brown. So I loved the Charlie Brown cartoons. But my love for TV cartoons came from newspaper comics, which I'm sure a lot of people can relate to. Is you would read the comics, and then being able to see those animated on TV was amazing. I loved anything Disney. I would remember Sunday night, Disney they would do a movie on the Disney Channel every Sunday night. And I totally would look forward to it. And I would see the ads on TV during the week, and I'd be like, I think I was like 5 or 6. My mom, she'd want me to take a bath Sunday night. And I'd be like, Mom, I have to take my bath now because I'm going to miss the start of the movie. You couldn't rewind it like you can now. So there was like this urgency to plan around special TV shows. So I would definitely watch those types of things. What about you?
For me, it was, I guess, kind of getting into more of the anime type. So I loved Voltron. I loved Thundercats. I loved Our Star Blazers, which are, that's probably a reference you don't even remember.
No.
And I was weird as a kid too, which probably is no surprise. I loved PBS. So I loved watching all the cooking shows on PBS. So
really?
I'd watch The Galloping Gourmet. I'd watch
that's funny.
Julia Childs. I'd watch Jacques and Julia. I'd watch the heck was his name? He was the pastry chef, world famous pastry chef, and he would have like these little cartoons, and he'd have kids in the audience. It was just I was
really cool.
addicted to PBS cooking shows. The other ones, as far as like could not miss, I'll never forget. So I can't remember if it was Friday or Saturday night. It was one of the weekend nights, and back in the day, when my parents were married, they would go out, and before they would go out, the TV would always, my parents had a TV in their bedroom, and the TV would always be on, and we'd always be crowded around the TV watching. And it would always be, so my dad loved the show Solid Gold. I don't know why. He just loved that show. He loved the dancers of the Solid Gold dancers. So we'd be watching Solid Gold, and I think it came on after the Muppet Show. So we were in the room planted to watch the Muppet Show, which absolutely loved. One of my absolute favorite shows ever was the Muppet Show. And then they had another show, I think it was called Bonkers, that came on after the Muppet Show, and then maybe it was Solid Gold. So that was kind of the lineup. And then my parents would go out. So that was, and then if they got home in time, they would let us watch a little bit of The Love Boat, but never Fantasy Island. That was a bridge too far. So Fantasy Island, we weren't allowed to watch.
I did watch Gilligan's Island. I remember that. And then I used to get so frustrated on Saturday morning. I'd watch all my favorite cartoons and I wanted it to keep going, but it would always end around like 11 or 12 o'clock. I can't remember. And it would go straight to WWE or something, some kind of local wrestling. I will never forget that, that feeling of being so bummed out, you know?
I loved MASH too. MASH,
I never
Hill
watched
Street
that.
Blues, ER.
My sister definitely watched that with my dad.
Yeah,
that Beverly
Blues,
Hillbillies.
So good. I didn't watch I didn't love the Beverly Hillbillies, but I liked Hogan's Heroes. That was another one I used to watch. So, which was crazy. That was, it was kind of almost, I don't want to say modern day Three Stooges, but had kind of like that slapstick.
Oh, Three Stooges. I totally forgot about that. My dad got me on. My dad, I was just talking about him earlier. He was always so had a sense of humor. So he would have me watch the Three Stooges and my mom would always be like, Martin, don't have her watch that. And my dad would be like, oh, it's fine. Ha ha. And we would laugh hysterically together. I love the Three Stooges. And he was always getting me on to these things. There was a book called The Twits. And I don't know if anybody has heard of that book. Actually, I got to look up. I can't remember who the author is. It's someone we know. Roald Dahl. So my dad absolutely loved that book. And I remember at nighttime, he would read it to me and he would kind of act it out. He liked to act out the characters in the books.
It runs voices in the family.
Yeah. So my mom was always like, Martin, don't read that. And and he would. And it was just like, it was about a couple, an old couple that they were married and they lived together and they just did like pranks to each other. They were constantly pranking each other. And like one of them glued the other one to the ceiling and glued everything upside down. Anyway, so, it was kind of crass, like, but at the same time, it was fun. It was hilarious. But I was also mentioning too, like when I built the forts during, like if I was having a sick day or it was a rain day, I loved bringing my books in. And books were a huge part of my childhood and still are part of my life. I don't know if you had any favorite books that you used to read.
I was not a great reader. I didn't love books. So I think for me, if the books had a lot of illustrations in them, I would page through it, but it was very hard. I don't know why. I just struggled reading. But Where the Sidewalk Ends was a book that is forever burned in my brain. I'll never forget that book.
I can quote it. I can quote a poem from that book. Another one that my dad loved to read because it was so funny. Teddy said it was a hat, and so I put it on. Now Dad's saying, where the heck's the toilet plunger gone? Can you believe I still remember that to this very day?
Absolutely cannot believe you remember that.
Half the stuff like I did yesterday, but I can remember that poem.
I was just enamored by the title, Where the Sidewalk Ends. I don't know what it is.
Interesting.
It just captivating. And the illustrations, I just loved that kind of single line, black and white. It just was cool.
Yeah. Very linear. That was cool. I love the McDonald's books. They used to put those little books in, it would be like the Muppet Babies or, whatever the movie was coming out, they would put a book in the McDonald's Happy Meals. And I love those. I love the imagination and creativity. I think I lived completely in a world of imagination and creativity as a kid. My mom was really good at creating space to be creative and to be imaginative. She was an artist in all ways, like decorating, cooking. She did a lot of art. She liked to write. And I think I picked up a lot of that. And then my dad had a really good sense of humor and he was pretty good with his hands. Like he built me a dollhouse. So I think it's funny how like a lot of those things kind of filter into who I am today. But I loved books. I loved going to the library. I can't tell you how much I love libraries from my childhood. I feel like libraries have changed a lot. They charge you a lot for a lot of stuff now. It's, and I've been reading this cool book about library history and how people always working at the libraries were all about it needs to be a place for everyone. It needs to be a free and accessible tool. Tool's probably not the right word for it, but resource or space for everybody. And I really love that. And so we would go to the library constantly and I'd check out the books and I couldn't read fast enough. And I'm like you, I loved the picture books. I loved looking at pictures. Like I was obsessed with it.
See, I have the exact opposite.
You don't like libraries?
Shocking. So libraries were like a torture chamber for me. I just
really
couldn't stand being in the library, right? The stupid Dewey Decimal System, which was, gosh, trying to find a book using that was
I remember
calculus.
That.
And then,
did you ever have a class on library and research? That used to be part of the curriculum. The Dewey Decimal System.
It wasn't called that, but we had to learn the Dewey Decimal System. So we had a library in our school. In our middle school, we had a decent library where they taught us the Dewey Decimal System. So, but yeah, I never liked the library. And my mom, I think she was on her second master's degree in math, calculus of all things. My mom was very smart, did not flow down the chain of command.
That's not true. You have an engineering brain for sure.
So she was always studying due to her compulsive personality. So she would take us to the library as she would study for hours for these math exams. And she would be tutoring or being tutored. So it was miserable. I mean, there's not. I did not have the same appetite to read as you have illustrated that you did. So I'd just be sitting there bored out of my mind.
Did they have a
getting in
children's
trouble?
section?
Yeah, but I didn't like.
Was
reading.
It not very good? Okay.
It could have been great. I just hated reading. I don't know why.
Where would you have rather have been? Outside playing?
Yeah. I would have much rather have been with my friends. And I just wanted to always be out with my friends. Like that was always the most important thing was how soon can I get out to be with, and I had a lot of friends. Well,
You're very social.
I went through a couple tough years where I didn't have any friends, but the friends growing up that I had, I mean, we were always either on our bikes or outside building something or hurting ourselves. Like literally our big thing, and anyone from the Gen X generation, I feel like kind of is similar, but like we always wanted to launch something off of a ramp, whether it was on a bike, a scooter, anything with wheels, it had to get airborne. It just had to. So I loved doing that. That was one of my favorite things with my friends. We're building a tree fort, giving us power tools to climb up a tree and construct something. Great idea for like an 11 or 12-year-old, right?
I always wanted to build a tree house. That was such a huge thing for me. I was always wanting to try everything. Like I was very much an experimenter. I loved reading about inventing things and innovation. And I wanted to be a skater. I wanted to try karate. I wanted to do marine biology. I mean, it's funny how kids are always so open to try. Most kids are always wanting to try new things, launch things off the top of a building, because you're always curious. You've got that curiosity. Well, what will happen? And I wish that we didn't lose that as we got older, that curiosity.
So I feel like for me, I totally agree with what you're saying. It is a magical time. But for me, with an older brother, that curiosity turned into something much worse. So I'll never forget my brother. I was very outgoing. As a child, I just loved getting into things. Now, Peter, I don't know what, he just loved to dominate every situation. So he was very creative as well, but not for good reasons. So I'll never forget, I loved my 10-speed bike. I loved my BMX bike when I was younger, but my 10-speed bike, I used to bike everywhere, like everywhere. I'll never forget, he put vegetable oil on my brakes.
Are you serious? Oh my gosh.
Yes.
You're like, that's like borderline murder. Hello.
Well,
oh my gosh. Yes.
he was very, like I said, he was very creative. One time he took a Timberland boot
Misdirected.
and he strung it up in the closet. So when you opened the door, it would hit you in the head. That was a fun one.
Oh my gosh.
He put dog doo-doo in my bed. So I got to smear around in that.
I'm disgusted by.
Yeah, and a bunch of other fun things. He was always, yes, and he never grew out of that whole, hey, you do this. And he was very influential and you did it. So yeah, he had me put, like every older brother does to their younger siblings, a paperclip in the electrical outlet. That was fun. That was a good one. I think I was like 4. So that was a good one.
Glad you're still alive.
Yeah, it's amazing. He punched his hand through a window because I locked the door and tried to pull me out, and he like filleted his entire arm. So shout out to Peter. He was quite the quite the role model growing up. And for my friends that are listening that knew my brother, will be chuckling to themselves because he was a larger than life personality. So rest in peace, bro. So definitely a larger than life personality. But yeah, we grew up in a time where I just wanted to go out and my brother always wanted to extinguish the fun that I was having. For whatever reason, he just didn't want me to have fun. So his fun was picking on me and doing awful things. He put wasps
Were you smaller?
in my bed too.
Were you smaller than him?
No, my brother was a big guy. He was always big.
I know.
Husky.
Were you smaller than him in size?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Not
my
sister. Not in height.
My sister was smaller than me. I was much bigger than her. And I remember 2 different times. And it's always when my parents were out. I think one time she and we had a TV in the living room. So we had built-in bookcases in the living room. And there were these dark wooden paneled bookcases like from the 80s.
Everything was dark in the 80s.
The whole room was actually wood paneled, the whole thing. But we had the fireplace in the middle of the built-ins. So one side of the bookcase had a TV and it wasn't big. And so my mom had this like wing chair in front of it, this green wing chair. So you couldn't really it wasn't like, oh, you had a couch where you could sit around and watch the TV. So my sister and I would turn the chair around. She'd sit on the arm or I'd sit on the arm and, one of us would sit in the chair and we would watch something. Well, she's 8 years older than me, so there was always something on that she wanted to watch that I didn't, or vice versa. So I think one time, it was like Saturday, my parents went out, and they rarely went out like this, but I was like annoyed with her. And I don't remember why, but I knew it was related to the TV. And so I was all like, I'm muscling her and wrestling her. And, that's actually kind of embarrassing. I'm like embarrassed that I did that. I was like, what was wrong with me? And then we used to, that didn't happen often, but I always felt bad later that I did that. And then the other times we would argue was always traveling in the car. And we've talked about this. Don't look out my window. This is my window. And I would literally try to cover the window. But I wonder who started it. I don't know if it was my sister or if it was me that would always start the arguments.
Did it matter? It didn't even matter.
It didn't matter.
It didn't matter. And back in the day, you weren't strapped in or anything. You didn't have seatbelts in the back seat. You had the big hump in the middle, right? You were standing up. Hell, one time I was like, I think I laid out on the back where the speakers are in the back window. And that's when the whole thing came about, when it's like, if I turn around one more time. And as a kid, you're afraid of that. But now you think about, and what are you going to do, right? Honestly,
you're driving.
Right. So, or if, God forbid, you put the dome light on. Oh, my God.
Oh,
you might as well have shined
the
brightest light in history in their eyes, your parents' eyes, for turning the dome light on.
Turn that off. You was a wreck.
And it was always bait. Don't touch it. Oh, you just said the words. You just said the words.
Do that.
I got to touch it now. I got to touch it. I got pause. But yes, it was always the car. Oh, my gosh. The freaking
My
car.
sister. No, go ahead.
I was going to say, I ran away from home once. That was like the thing to do when we were young. And your parents would always play chicken with you. They were like, here, you'll be back. Right nowadays, you'd be like calling the police, 911. And before, it's like, I'll see you in a couple hours.
You'll run out of food in an hour.
You'll run out of food. So one time, I did scare the shit out of my mom. I hid in the back of the car and fell asleep. and no one could find me.
Oh, really? That's scary. That's actually
But
not
yes,
good.
running away back in the day was awesome because literally nobody cared. They were just like, go ahead.
How did you run away? Well, first off, real quick, before we jump from the car, on a road trip to Florida, I think I was like 5 or 6, my sister said, the floor where the hump is, that's a really cool spot to be. You should lay down there and I'll lay up here on the seats. I don't remember exactly how she said that, but that was basically the gist of it. And I think my mom turned around and she was like, what are you doing? Stop it. But yeah, okay. So talking about, what were you just talking about? See, I forget one or the other.
Gosh, you got me back into car mode. What were we just talking about?
Oh my gosh, help.
So bad. This is what age.
You fell asleep in the car. You ran away.
Running away.
So running away. Wow. How did you run away? I remember one time I tried that and I put a handkerchief, I laid it out, I put stuff in it, I tied it to a stick. And I walked out. I think I was like, again, 5 or 6. And I walked outside. And my mom literally saw me and she's like, here, have a sandwich. And I up the street and I like sat in my neighbor's yard on a tree stump. And then I came back like an hour later because I was bored. I was like, yeah, I'm ready to go watch TV.
Yeah, I think I took empty Tic Tac plastic cases and filled them up with iced tea. That was my... I don't know why.
Oh, that's funny.
I thought that was a good idea. And similar to what you just said, I think I would walk down the block and I would get maybe 2 blocks away from the house. I'd be out of my little Tic Tac iced tea packets. Right? I was parched. I'm like, man, this quite isn't working out the way no one was chasing after me. So it didn't really warrant the response I was looking for. So yes, I would just go home. Be like,
and it was hot because I would do it during the summer. I think I did it when I was bored at home and it was hot and I was sweating. Yeah. That's so funny.
Running away from home. Do kids run? Did your kids run away from home? Did they ever?
No.
I feel like that doesn't happen anymore. Kids don't run away from. Well, I shouldn't say that. They
do. A lot of teenagers do, but
yeah, I don't want to say. I'm not discrediting or making fun of people that truly run away from home.
Like, because as a childhood experience, it's just like it's not serious. I don't know if kids do that. I'm sure they do. I'm sure they're like, oh, I'm going to go, do this or that. But to me, it was more about imagination and being independent and wanting to get out and do your thing, and see the world. I never saw it as a dangerous thing. It was more about the fun of it.
Yeah. Also, you weren't being pumped full of awful information 24/7 where you can't get away from the news. You actually had to wait for the news cycle to hit before you heard all the awful things going on in the world. But ignorance is bliss. I remember my dad
watching the 5 o'clock. He'd get home from work. Was it 6 o'clock or 5 o'clock news? It must have been
the 5, the 5:30. 6, the 6:30, and then I think it was then the global news would come on at 7.
And
but
my
we
mom
didn't
would
watch
always
that because Jeopardy would be on.
You're like, can't sacrifice Jeopardy. And my mom would always get newspapers. We had newspapers delivered.
My dad still reads the newspaper today. He's every day reads the newspaper. Philly
It's crazy
Inquirer,
how
always
out of date it gets now. I mean, literally within a minute, it's out of date.
It is interesting. When I was on riding the train every day in and out of the city for work, I was always amazed at how many people still read the newspaper. It's a very, I guess there's something just about that habit that people enjoy the tactile nature of physically holding a paper and the rustling and then paging through it. So I never read the newspaper much, so I never developed that skill. But man, my dad every day, 7 days a week, reads that newspaper. So he'll send me pictures of articles from the newspaper.
Really? Oh, that's funny.
So
that's pretty cool, though. I like that.
Yeah, that was a big deal. The newspaper was a big deal, a very big deal. And God forbid you skipped paper person didn't leave the paper. That was grounds for war.
What did you do during the summer as a kid? We talked about winter, but what did you do during the summer?
I went to camp.
Yeah. Did you go every year?
Yes. And
how long was it?
It was 8 weeks.
So it was pretty much the whole summer. Wow. Okay.
So I went to day camp which I hated. I have to say, I've really, really hated it because I didn't love sports when I was younger because it just wasn't great at them. I had some trauma from playing sports like baseball and stuff. So it kind of stuck with me. I swear everything in my life was traumatic. I know that sounds dramatic, but
No,
literally
it really was traumatic.
I'll never forget. I played Little League and it was a rough time growing up. My parents were on the outs and so I would get dropped off and I just had the worst coach ever. He would just yell at me nonstop. So it made me
Didn't
very
really
anxious.
build
No. So
confidence.
made me very fearful. And they kept hitting me with the baseball when I would get up to bat. So it made me afraid of the ball. They put me out in left field, in the blazing hot sun. No one could ever hit that far. So it was just miserable. And I was
Yeah.
always getting yelled at. I did, and other sports I had played, I had some similar experiences. So I wasn't huge in the sports and day camp. That was a huge part of the curriculum. And I just hated running around like soccer. I just didn't like playing soccer. I didn't like running around in the heat and kicking a ball around.
Yeah.
I did not enjoy those years. That's what I can't believe I'm talking about this. So I started to go to art camps. So heavily into music and art.
Yeah.
And photography and other things, which was great. I got to, really hone in on, I loved playing music. I played saxophone for almost 20, not 20 years, 15 years. And I learned how to read music properly, music theory, learned how to play jazz, which is extremely difficult.
Which is crazy because I think you get that from your mom, that math brain. Because I'm not good at reading music. I cannot. I'm terrible at it. It's a real skill.
It's just, I guess after you get used to it, and I played in a bunch of different bands. So that was my outlet. Yes. And that was my outlet. I regret, you always hear your parents, you'll regret this later in life. I do regret kind of letting that go and not continuing to play because music was such a great outlet for me.
Right.
So that was something so that's what I did in the summers. And then I started going to overnight camp and those were just different years for me. And we won't get into some of those years because they were traumatic, go figure. But for the most part, my nose keeps running. For the most part, I really did enjoyed more of the arts part of it as opposed to the sports part. Although I did play, I was good. I was a great swimmer and a good diver. So I did find my sporting outlet later in life, but
because you got that broad back.
I was a good freestyle swimmer, 50 freestyle.
Then broad shoulders.
Rip through that water.
My summers were always very boring. So I always wanted to go to camp, but I actually wish that if my mom had sent me to camp early, when I was young, I would have gotten used to being away from home. But my mom actually would never let me go to camps. And I was a very sheltered child. And so when I did finally go away for my first trip, it was a school trip. It was 8th grade, I think. I got super homesick and cried the first night. And felt ill.
Like my sister.
Yeah. So it was, but over the summers as a kid, we always had summer reading to do. So I couldn't wait for summer because I could just do whatever I wanted to. I would play, I would watch cartoons. I mean, it was that I looked forward to. But the summer reading I always put off. And they were books that, it's funny, they were classics, but I never enjoyed them. I didn't enjoy reading them. Now, I always loved when I got to pick my own book, which as I got older, 8, 9, 10, I think that in the summer reading, they would always tell you could pick one book of your own choosing from the list. And so I would pick out books that I would want to read. I feel like a lot of people are like this. Actually, probably most people are like it. If it's something you enjoy reading, you're more likely to read it, right? It's hard to stay self-disciplined to read stuff that you really don't have a lot of interest in. But I am glad that I really am glad they had the summer reading program. And actually, when the kids were little, we would do it through the church, the summer reading program at church and through the library. And they would get awards and little treats and things. And the kids loved to read because of that. But I didn't go, like a lot of kids that I knew went to like Disney over the summer. They'd go on a trip or, we never went on trips, hardly ever. And if we did, it was either to see my grandmother or my grandparents, or it would be a work trip that my dad had to go on to the beach, which was always really fun.
Yeah, we didn't travel much either when I was a kid. So it just, for whatever reason, with 3 kids, I guess we just didn't do it. Later in life, we did. We would always have, somewhere to a couple weeks down the shore or at the beach, but
not when you were little.
No, I don't ever remember going to the beach as a little kid. So,
really?
And we didn't live far. We didn't live that far from the beach, and I could just block it out. It's not something I remember.
Yeah.
So we were only about 2.5 hours, 2.5 hour drive from the beach or 2 hour drive. So, but doing that for a day, I don't know. My parents weren't those type of parents. They weren't like doing day trips, right? Like,
Yeah.
Hey, everyone, let's get in the car and do a date. No, we're not doing that, children.
So I have a question for you. I'm moving to a different topic. Birthday gifts when you were a kid. Did you ever have any really special ones that you loved, growing up in the era that we both grew up in?
That's a tough question. This can sound weird. I got one of these like handheld microscopes.
Cool.
And I just loved that thing. I loved it. And one time my mom bought me this big styrofoam airplane. You attach the wings to the side.
Yes, I remember those.
Go outside. And that was it lasted all of probably 20 minutes before it broke in half. But those were that was a great 20 minutes. And that magnifying glass thing, Brookstone, I'll never forget. I saw it in a Brookstone catalog because my dad was notorious for sharper image in Brookstone.
I love those.
The Brookstone store was magical for me.
It was.
Everything in there, whether it was that super awesome massage chair that was always insanely expensive that no one could ever afford, or just some random handheld microscope.
Cool toy. Yep.
So it was very, very cool. So yes, those were some of the toys that I remember. And probably the best toy or the best present I ever got, which was huge for me, was my RC car. My remote control car.
Yeah, I remember you saying that. Yeah.
And it was called a Bigwig. It was 4-wheel drive, had a drive shaft in it. I had to build it, really got to learn kind of some mechanics through that. It had oil. I'll never forget building the coilovers, the shocks. You had to fill them with oil. You had to prime them. You had to get the tension right. I mean, this was like an amazing experience to learn how to build something and then literally understand what you're building will impact the way the car performs. So it was awesome. That is cool. That was my favorite. And then I wanted to get into remote control airplanes, but that never happened.
Yeah. Anything remote controlled was amazing. The cars or the planes, but we never had that. But Sharper Image represented innovation and invention to me as a kid. It was the only place where you could find things you could never find anywhere else. I got a Skip It for my birthday one year. It was a pink Skip It, and I absolutely love that thing because I used to love to jump rope. And I learned double Dutch, and it was all from school, learning at playground recess.
We had to do double Dutch at school. We learned how to do, it was part of gym.
Yeah, it was cool that we were able, and they would do jump rope contests. And so the Skip It, and I love that it counted how many skips you did. So I thought that was super cool. The Hawaiian Barbie came with a little pod of hard perfume that smelled like pineapple. And I still to this day, I can envision in my mind how it looked in the box, what she wore, how it smelled. Isn't that crazy that I can remember it so well?
It's kind of like the strawberry shortcake doll. You'll never forget the way that plastic strawberry smell.
Yes.
forever burned in your nostrils.
Yeah. So I would get some really fun birthday gifts. The kids that I were around, a lot of their moms were always finding the newest things to buy. So if I was fortunate enough to have a birthday party where I had a lot of school friends come, I would always end up with some pretty cool gifts, or at least like one or two that were really fun that like my parents probably wouldn't buy. So I always like that. Monogrammed things were a big thing. So getting something monogrammed was super cool, like your pencil supplies or your pencil case, getting your monogram. I can't remember the store. There was a store back in Memphis that did monogramming, and they may still be open, but they did it for years. And that's where everybody would go get their stationery sets and, monogrammed with their name and things like that. That was real big back then.
So going back to gifts, or continuing with gifts, I'm curious, what did you buy your parents as gifts back then? Like if they would give you a little bit of cash and, because they wanted you to for whatever reason. So what did you used to buy your parents as a gift?
So the school I went to, they were very big into the arts. Now that I'm looking back, I realized how big they were into the arts. So music, theater, it was an all-girls school. So we had art classes, music, theater, academic classes, of course. But so I didn't buy gifts a lot. I made gifts in class. So I remember like making a little vase of flowers with like, a little card for my mom for Mother's Day, or for my dad, it would be like decorating a construction tie, but when I did buy things for them, it was always the very mom and dad stuff. It was like buy my dad a tie, or always like I was always, when I got older, looking for a massager. He was always wanting to be massaged, so I'd get him like the little massager for the chair at Walmart, or, the foot massager, or, now that I look back, it's funny. My dad was probably stressed all the time from work. So, and coffee mugs, picture frames. Picture frames were really big back then. So I'd like at school, they'd take a picture of us and then put them in a frame for like Mother's Day or Christmas. It'd be an ornament, that sort of thing. Those were kind of this.
Yeah, the biggest thing I remember was Wix and Sticks, the candle store.
What is that?
It was a candle store, and they had super elaborate like figurine candles. They were that was just.
Oh, that's funny. You pulled
shout
that
out
out.
to God bless my mom, right? So she would always be so gracious in receiving this gift. But these candles were cool to look at. But my mom probably didn't really want a wizard candle.
Oh, that's funny.
The wizard candle and the staff. Oops. But anyway, just drop that phone. So if anybody remembers, comment if you remember Wix and Sticks. It was in the mall, or they were in malls, and that'll have to be another episode. Our favorite stores growing up. That'll be a fun
we could
one.
Totally get into that.
Stores and brands, but I feel like we've just scratched the surface on some nostalgia talks. I like this episode. I like talking about this stuff because it makes me feel good.
Yeah.
Remembering some of these great memories, and also enjoy listening to your memories as far as, what lights your lights? What lights your light? What lights you up?
Certain memories.
Terrible.
We're going to run past that. No, some memories, funny enough, will trigger other memories that I've forgotten about. So when I hear other people talk about things, I'm like, oh yeah, I forgot about that. So it's always fun to hear what people remember, because everybody remembers a lot of the same stuff, but then you'll remember other stuff. And I'm like, wow, thanks for reminding me.
Yeah. So comment in the comments some of your favorite nostalgic memories, or just some of your favorite memories at all. Or favorite stores, favorite brands, favorite cartoons, favorite lunchbox, any of the top, favorite sled, favorite snow memory. We could go on and on and on. Yeah. So this was, we'll definitely have to continue. We'll have to do a couple parts of the nostalgia series.
Yes.
And if anyone wants to jump on and talk nostalgia, hit us up, because I feel like when you start talking about this stuff, I forget it. I forget what so yeah, getting old's fun. Any case. So that's going to bring us to a close on what is this? Episode 17. Episode 17 of The Well. The nostalgia episode, the reach back. So thanks for tuning into The Well. Make sure you're liking, following, subscribing, commenting, engaging, all the wonderful things. And thanks for all the support that we have been receiving. Thanks for helping us grow our platform. We do appreciate it.
Stay warm.
Yeah, stay warm. It's right now and right outside of Dallas. It's 12 degrees, but with the wind chill, it's 0. So
the wind chill.
People don't think it gets cold, the wind chill. People don't think it gets cold in Dallas, but it does. We get a winter. It was a surprise to me as well. And on that note, we're going to bring episode 17 of The Well to a close. I'm Drew.
And I'm Kat.
And thanks for tuning in. We'll see you on episode 18. Bye.
Bye.